Okay, hello, I'm Bill Olson with Macro Business Capital, and I'm here with Jeff Slayton from Eden Prairie. And we're here to discuss the different scenarios that we run into at Macro Business Capital and the different things that we face with business owners and how we handle them. Thank you, Jeff, and go ahead and let's go through it.
Well, Bill, sometimes when we talk to clients, we're also running into some challenging scenarios where there may be a business bankruptcy, there could be a bunch of late payments, you run into clients who have charge-offs. Talk about how you handle those particular problems.
Why don't you give them to me one at a time? And
well, let's talk about, all right, let's say, Bill, I've had a business bankruptcy 8 years ago.
Jeff, that's something that we do see occasionally. And if someone has a bankruptcy from 8 years ago, we have a very strong chance of getting that bankruptcy to a position, I don't want to say removed, but getting it so that it doesn't show up on at least 2 credit bureaus in a reasonable period of time, so that at least we could do some funding for the client. As long as everything else is good and correct and they don't have late payments after the bankruptcy and different things, we look at each case individually and try and give the client a time frame. But generally on something that is 7 years or older in a bankruptcy, sometime in the case of, say, 60 days to 6 months, we have a really strong shot of getting it off of at least 2 credit bureaus, and we can start funding on any of them as soon as we get them off.
And alternatively, those clients who've had a recent bankruptcy, either personal or business, they file Chapter 7 or Chapter 13. In those instances, we'd be looking at maybe a different credit partner.
Yeah, that's right. We would definitely use a cosigner, but I better go back and discuss the bankruptcy situation earlier. You said a business bankruptcy.
Yeah.
I was discussing a personal bankruptcy.
Okay.
If someone's business went broke or went bankrupt and they're still owning it and the owner's credit was good, at any point, all we have to do is get them a new corporation. So if it's a true business bankruptcy and the guarantors have good credit, all we would do is immediately switch the corporation. We would have them buy a shelter-age corporation in that case.
That's what I think is good in terms of discussion. So the credit partner potential, getting them to buy a new corporation that's at least 2 years old would be a solvent to that particular situation.
Absolutely.
Okay. Talk about occasionally we get clients with charge-offs. How do you handle those?
Well, again, we have a lot faster success with anything that is negatives that are over 2 years old. What we're going to do is look at each situation again individually. We don't want to take any client's money or contract if we don't think we can get them into funding in a relatively quick period, and we'll discuss that with clients. By quick, I normally would say 90 days or less. There are occasions when we are working with clients and they need us and they don't have alternatives that might take 6 months. But we're going to look at each charge-off and see what we can do legally and what remedies we have to get that removed from their credit reports. And there are a number of methods to do this, and we can and will employ them all.
Okay, and the same situation would probably apply to late pays.
Yeah, late payments sometimes are a lot simpler. We want the client to take an active participation with us for speed. We know that if a late payment is within the last 2 years, it's much more difficult to get removed than a late payment that was 6 years ago. For example, I just had a case today where we had a gal that had a late payment with Chase 6 years ago. They were having no luck getting anywhere with them. I happened to be in their home city. I took them into the bank and found out that that late payment with Chase, there's no records of it after X many years. And so they got a record, and we got a letter today that since they have no record of it and they can't substantiate anything, that they are physically removing that, and it'll be removed within days from all 3 credit bureaus. So there's a case where the customer tried a few things. I took an active stance with them and just physically walked them into the bank, and it worked out very well. Normally a customer can pick up the phone and call, and if they've had an account for 5, 6, 7 years and they've had one late payment, and if they have a reason or whatever, about 70% of the time, we find that they will re-age the account, and the correct terminology is re-aging it. A lot of times we'll give them some information that the company has from the Federal Register, which specifically states that banks can re-age accounts. That'll help them get the job done.
Well, thank you, Bill. Is there any other scenarios that we'd like to talk about?
Sometimes we'll have a scenario where someone has an open collection on their account. It happens a lot with cell phones. They get in their kids use a phone, they get a $200 or $300 bill, and they're just refusing to pay it out of principle. Well, that would stop us from funding, so we politely tell the people to suck it up and pay the bill. But what we want them to do is, rather than just cutting a check and rushing it off to the collection agency, what we'll do is have them make the check out, send it to us. We will put a restrictive endorsement on the back of the check stating that if the collection agency accepts this check, they are agreeing to remove any and all negative information about the client from all 3 credit bureaus, and that works normally very quickly for us.
Good, thank you, Bill.